Okay, hello everybody and welcome to the TF1 show. It's our second race of the year has just finished and I'm so excited today to welcome F1 Dornie on the show to help me work through the Styrian Grand Prix and all of the interesting things that happened. Welcome.
Hello, lovely to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on. I think we have much to discuss, even though I guess the race wasn't as action-packed as last week. I think this was more of a, vanilla Mercedes 1-2 domination race as we've seen over the last couple of years. But still, I think lots to unpack. I think some teams leaving with a bit of a bloody nose after the 2 weeks here, and we'll get into that a bit later. And just for the listeners, what we'll do is we'll basically discuss the teams individually, give our thoughts on how they did over the weekend, and I guess also maybe in some cases some of the wider things happening with each of the F1 teams and the two drivers driving for that team. So, Dornie, let's maybe start with Mercedes. I think they really righted the ship, if there was a ship to right compared to last week. Obviously last week Bottas won, but Hamilton had a bit of trouble with a whole range of protests and penalties. But this week was back to normal service, and Mercedes won too. No real trouble.
Yeah, if anyone was having any doubts about Lewis or Mercedes or their dominance, then they have just been absolutely told to be quiet, because I didn't even see Lewis on my screen. He was that far ahead.
It was like it was Sainz. It was like it was Carlos Sainz leading the race.
Yes. But no, he put in such a great performance, and I think he wasn't deterred by last week and the fact that it didn't quite go. Although Lewis never opens the season too well in recent years.
No.
But he has shown that he just needed that 1 week to be a little bit dodgy, and he's right back there, and the whole Mercedes team are just back to showing that they're they're in another league.
Yeah, and I think, his qualifying lap yesterday was like a big exclamation point on his whole race weekend, beating everybody with 1.2 seconds, crazy margin between him and the second place driver, which was Max Verstappen. And, you forget that Austria isn't one of Hamilton's favorite tracks, right? He really doesn't like Austria, and it's one of Valtteri's strongest tracks. So if I'm Lewis Hamilton, I'd be pretty pleased with the 2 weekends. I think he showed that he's probably going to be the man to beat still, even going into the next couple of races.
Yeah, I was quite happy at the end when Valtteri managed to get past, because he's still leader of the championship. So I've got my Valtteri hat on, and I'm hoping that he doesn't start to lose it. Although Hamilton, I feel like are maybe fighting a losing battle here. However, Lewis is just, that pole position lap was unreal in the wet. He just purple sectored every single sector, and I just couldn't. I was so in shock, or not even shock. It wasn't shock. I knew he could do it, but just awe.
Yeah, it's weird to see, you sort of imagine in your head that they do things like that sometimes, but to see it happen live is actually quite crazy. This lap to me was a bit like that Singapore lap from a couple of years ago. I always remember that Singapore pole lap that Hamilton did, and this one is another one of those where people are going to ask you, do you guys remember that pole lap from 3 years ago? And I'm like, yes, I remember that pole lap. So I guess Bottas, another solid weekend for him. He did what he could. I think he maximized, what he had. So I do hope that he can give Hamilton a good fight for the title. Even if, he maybe doesn't win it at the end, it would be really great to see, him fighting Hamilton right up until the very end, like Rosberg. I want to see like a Rosberg Hamilton title fight, because Mercedes now is the fastest team. I don't see Red Bull or anyone else catching them, unfortunately.
No. I think it would be really good for Valtteri to put in a really good fight and just actually prove, because I know there's a lot of Valtteri doubters or haters who just don't quite think he deserves that place, and I think he does. It just doesn't quite all go his way sometimes. So
I'm actually one of them. I'm one of the people sometimes that's like, especially like it's like sometimes he just goes away in the race, and then I'm like, I realize at the end of the race, I'm like, what? Where was Bottas even? I don't even remember what position he finished in. But like this season actually looks really positive for him so far. I think he looks like he's going to be fighting. So I really hope that's the case. Okay, so let's quickly move on to Red Bull before we can move on to our real bad apples of the weekend. So I think we heard over the radio, Max, he did a good job to get that second place in qualifying. I think he put together a good lap in the wait to beat out Bottas and Sainz. Albon was sort of, I felt, neither here nor there the whole weekend. Like, you can't say did a terrible job, but he also didn't really shoot the lights out, I felt.
I think Albon's problem, or something I found with him, is that when he's got the pressure on in a situation, and see when he was nearing the end and he was fighting with Bottas for a position, like he was doing a really good job and did hold him off for a bit. But when he's just not got that pressure and he is driving round and forth by himself, he's just sitting way off the pace. He needs someone putting the pressure on, which is really weird. But that's what I kind of thought. He was just there, and I think he does need to kind of buck up his ideas, and
he needs to pick up the pace a bit, because but I also wondered if it wasn't a tire thing, because I think we saw a couple of drivers struggle on the soft tires for some reason. Like when we saw, Ocon, when he was on the soft and Ricciardo was on the mediums, Ricciardo was like hustling him all the time, and Sainz at the end said he struggled with the soft tires. And I think Albon as well, because he was way off the pace during the first stint, like more than a second a lap slower than Max and Bottas and the guys up front. And then when you put on the mediums, all of a sudden he was much closer to the top. And then obviously when Perez started chasing him, then he hustled. So and he actually did a good job at the end, like defending from Perez, because Perez was on fire for the last 10 laps or so. So, and I guess maybe from Max's perspective, I think he did what he could. I don't really think he could have done more.
I think I actually managed to come back at Bottas really well during that bit. Even though he was saying his tyres were gone, he kind of came back, and I can't mind if it was inside or outside, whatever side. But then Valtteri obviously was that bit better and fresher tyres and everything. But Max did a really good job, and I think third was realistically the best he could have got out on the day.
No, agreed. I think you can see it also sort of dawned on him, that realization of that he's probably not going to be challenging for the wins that often, because he just started sounding so frustrated near the end, where he realized that it's just not fast enough. So I think for Red Bull as a whole, they're probably going to go away and think, maybe Hungary will be better for them, because maybe they don't rely on the engine that much. But I think Mercedes as an all-round package is just a class above at the moment, unfortunately for everybody else. All right, so let's talk about our bad apples. Now, I feel on each and every episode that I do, every week I have a rant about Ferrari, because just when you think they can't surprise you or they can't disappoint you even more. And again, I'm not even that big of a Ferrari fan, so I don't have high expectations. But when you have low expectations and they fail to meet them so horribly, what can you say? Qualified in 10th and 11th. Then Leclerc got a penalty, so he started in 14th. In the rain, they kept saying, no, they actually have good downforce, so it's just the engine or the straight line speed letting them down. I don't know where the downforce was during the rain, but anyways. And then lap 1, Leclerc drives up the back of Sebastian and takes out his rear wing. So Dornie, maybe give me your take on that first lap incident.
I think my take is fairly similar to everyone else's. I don't know what Charles was doing, why he was there. He should not have been there. There was no gap. It's a first corner or first lap. Just be careful a bit. There's going to be an incident. You don't want to be involved in it. Why are you being so silly?
No, I was actually speechless. I was just sitting there watching that, thinking, what are they doing? Literally. And if you think about sort of the wider repercussions of what they did, they fast track all of those updates to have it basically run them on the same track as what it was last week, so they can actually do like a like-for-like comparison between the two upgrade packages, so they can figure out what's working and what isn't. And before they even got to the race, both cars had to retire. So they basically wasted all of that effort. And now they don't even have the information they wanted to get out of the weekend. And I do think we need to come down harder on Charles for this, because, I mean, not poor, but Vettel, he's been making mistakes. But, I mean, we have criticized Vettel from here to the moon for everything that he's been up to. And I think we must be just as vocal about what Charles did here, because Charles, this is like just, I don't know, that was like a move where he thought he couldn't do anything wrong, and then he just thought, you know what, let me just do it, and then it blew up in his face, and it pulled him back down to earth. And I hope he learns from this. I'm sure he will, I guess, but yeah, I just couldn't understand what he was thinking.
I think Charles has been kind of the Ferrari poster boy and can do no wrong, and well, yes, he went. So, like, even with the Valtteri and Charles going home, I still think Valtteri got a lot more stick than Charles did. And I just think he is young, but... Yeah,
and Charles, actually, he was the one walking around in the museum, taking photos with fans and everything. Oh, don't even get... I actually forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me. I was so cross about it earlier in the week. Like... let's maybe not get into that now, but I agree. Ferrari needs to still keep Charles in check, because he is still 22 years old, and it's still his third season in F1. And like, if you think about Max, you know, a couple of years ago, he was crashing all over the place. And I feel like Charles needs to be careful for him to not get that same reputation, because he can't be going for moves like that on a first lap against his teammates.
And I think, like, fair enough, yes, he did come out and he apologised and he did the press release and everything, but there was this video that came out of Seb and Charles talking after, and it kind of just looked like Charles was quite dismissive. Obviously, we don't know what they were talking about. It could have been something totally different or whatever, but I do just think a little bit more respect and a little bit more coordination between all involved. Like, it is a team sport, firstly. Like, Ferrari is a team, and, well, Ferrari's not a team. They're not a team at the minute, and they need to...
It's like so disjointed, because Vettel is just away doing whatever the hell he wants. He doesn't care what he says or who he speaks to. So you can see, like, he was just like, I read the German, like, his interview to the German press. The German press was like, whose fault do you think it was? And he's like, did you see the onboard? He doesn't care anymore. He knows it was Charles' fault, and he will say it. And Mattia Binotto needs to wake up, or he needs to start being more forceful with both drivers, I think. Firstly, with, you know, Vettel just breaking ranks and doing whatever he wants. And secondly, stop mollycoddling Charles and letting him get away with everything. And, you know, Charles is always the picture of contrition after doing something wrong. He's always like, so sorry, I failed myself, I failed the team, I failed the world, I failed the universe. Like, it doesn't matter. He mustn't do things like that to start with. But, you know, I guess that's how you learn. Don't really know. I
think, like, he's got the big boy drive. He is in the Ferrari, and he just needs to be careful, because the rumours of him maybe being pushed too quickly or stepping up, and it would be so detrimental if he gained that reputation, because he is a world-class driver.
Absolutely.
But he just needs to be a little bit more careful.
Especially, and I think a year like this, where he's basically back in the midfield at a team like Ferrari, can be really, really damaging for him, like, and his career, because firstly, I think his stock value could drop if he's not up there competing with, you know, the big boys. And driving a Ferrari, fighting for 8th position, is a different thing than to fighting for a win or fighting for a podium. So how he deals with this can actually tell us a lot about how he is as a driver and sort of his mindset in general.
Definitely.
Okay, so that's Ferrari. I think that's enough of a rant. Let's maybe move on to our tripartite alliance in the midfield with Racing Point, McLaren, and Renault. Now, these three teams seem to be really close, like throughout the whole weekend in qualifying and in the race. It's very difficult to split them. I would probably go out and say Racing Point was probably the faster team on race day compared to qualifying. They messed up badly in qualifying, but I mean, Perez from 17th on the grid to finish with
smashed it.
Insane drive. So what? Maybe how do you see these teams stacking up against each other?
So I think there was definitely so much hype going about for Racing Point that everyone did have such high expectations. However, I think McLaren have just really shown that they are working away in the background and that they need to gain a bit more recognition, because they have put in 2 weekends of incredible racing. And even I would keep getting surprised with their qualifying pace.
Low fuel pace, amazing.
They're so good with low fuel. I think Renault, Ocon definitely proved himself a lot more today. With the retirement was quite unlucky. But those two, Danny and Ocon, or Esteban, need to just be a bit more careful as well, because they were stressing quite close. And obviously, as Ferrari know, you don't want to crash out your teammate.
Yeah.
But I think Racing Point, although they've not got that win or that really high grid place podium, or really high grid place yet, I think they still maybe are just a little bit ahead of McLaren. And then I think Renault would maybe be the bottom of the 3.
Yeah, so I think in qualifying, probably Racing Point and McLaren are pretty close. I think with maybe McLaren ahead. But in the race trim, Renault is there. I would almost say Renault is slightly faster than McLaren in race pace. Mm-hmm. If we saw the opening stint with Sainz up ahead, basically creating this massive bottleneck where it was Sainz and Ocon and Ricciardo and Perez and Norris and Stroll, and all of them were basically within a second of each other behind Sainz. But it's so tight, and I think it's going to be really, really cool to see them going to battle. And I guess the last thing we can maybe mention about these 3 teams is just interesting, and it's, I guess, sort of a bit of a breaking news moment. You heard it here first, folks, is that Renault is officially protesting the Racing Point team. And I think they're specifically citing the fact that, you need to independently design and build specific components of your car. Now, Dornie, with your, let's say, legal background, maybe give us your take on this and what angle Renault is taking on with this protest.
So I think there could be two sides that we can go. So we can obviously go the first side, which is Renault's throwing their dummies out the pram. They're kicking up a bit of a fuss because they're not as quick as they should, or they thought they would be, etc., etc. And they're just trying to find a way to kind of cause a bit of drama and maybe hope something sticks. Going by this side, I don't think they've got much going, because the amount of times this has been investigated already. I think Racing Point were quite proactive when the rumours started and said, well, come look at our designs, come and see that we have worked on it ourselves. However, I think you can also go the other side, which is more a bit like maybe Renault are just protecting themselves. They know it's legal, they know it's fine, but just to cover their own backs. And obviously this is a multi-billion-dollar competition, industry, everything. If their investors and their sponsors, etc., are putting pressure on them and going, have you definitely looked at everything? Have you, what if this comes out later, at a later date, that this car is illegal in some way? So maybe they are just covering their own backs, a bit like what Red Bull did with Mercedes and DAS, just making sure that they have ticked all those boxes and they've just covered themselves almost. So I don't know if I'm maybe being a bit too nice on them, saying it's this.
Look, I get why Renault is angry about it. I get why they're salty. I would also be very salty if, look, and not to discredit anything that Racing Point did, because I think just their undertaking of basically trying to use tracing paper and copy the Mercedes car, I think is a lot more complicated than what people made it sound.
Yeah.
It's not like they looked at a picture and went like, oh, okay, this is the front wing and this is how, like, it's months of development and like trial and error and trying to figure out basically from front to back how this whole philosophy holds together. But I also at the same time get why Renault, and I think to a lesser extent McLaren, are annoyed, because at the end of the day, like it's a bit of a low blow from Racing Point. But again, all is fair in love and war, I guess. If it's within the rules, then you can do. Then you can do what they did, and I think from a logical standpoint, it does make sense, because I mean, it's 2 years of these regulations, and then it's a completely new, different set of regulations. And Racing Point was like, okay, well, let's try and maximize our position now, because we're only going to be using these cars for the next 2 years, and then it's going to be something completely different anyway. So I really get from both sides why Renault is upset and why Racing Point's like, we did what we did. I don't know about you though, but I don't really see this protest taking that long. I think the FIA is going to be like, well, been there, done that, already said it's fine. Nice try.
I don't think it'll take long. I think there must be something new, or something not necessarily new, but something McLaren or whoever didn't protest for them to even merit saying, yes, it's been lodged. But I don't think this will be a big concern to anyone.
No, also don't think so. To be honest, the bigger concern to me is how Lance Stroll didn't get a penalty for his overtake of Ricciardo. Like, I don't know what you thought, but I thought when I saw it, I was like, nah, this isn't even going to take long. I thought there's going to be like a quick penalty, 5 seconds, Stroll off the road. And then I sort of went off Twitter for a bit and had dinner and so on. And then when I came back, I was fully expecting there to be a penalty.
Yeah.
And then there wasn't. And then, I don't know why, but maybe if you disagree with me, tell me now.
I think I need to watch it a couple more times before I make a definitive this is what. But I think he obviously did kind of lock up a little bit himself, did he?
Daniel
goes
now,
back
or
to the
Stroll?
No, Stroll.
Yeah.
So like, could he have? Like, was it intentionally he was driving out wide? But,
yeah, I guess the intention thing is maybe the sticky point.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it was intentional.
No.
But to me, like, he didn't make the corner. Like, I actually shared a video on my Twitter account. You guys can go check it out if you want, of the incident where Stroll just didn't get, like, he braked too late. And then he just, like, skidded across the track, went 4 wheels over the yellow curb, and Ricciardo had nowhere to go. So that's what I was like.
I think it goes back to like last week, and like even back to Canada last year, like how quick we want the stewards to intervene, and do we just want like true grit racing? And it means in situations like this, when they don't penalise, we start complaining. Or do we want situations where as soon as something mildly unfair happens to a driver, we want stewards to jump in and start giving time penalties? And I think it is just getting that balance.
I think for me, I would say my position on this would be, if Stroll, like, even if he went super deep into the corner, but made the corner, i.e. didn't go off the track after he, like...
Yeah.
I would have been like, you know what, hard racing, yes, Ricciardo maybe got pushed off, but, like, he left the door open. I would have been like, that's fine. But the fact that even Stroll didn't make the corner, he literally went wide after that, I was like, then would that basically mean people can just dive in, not brake, and just basically shove people off, don't even worry about making the corner? Like, that's to me where it gets a bit grey.
Yeah, I think this one was borderline, and again, you can argue it both ways. And I think another thing which I find a little unfair about penalties is that it was like quite the way lower down the pecking order. Obviously, this would be, if this was between first and second place, it would have been a much bigger issue. But because it was lower down the field and wasn't quite as important, perhaps, it wasn't discussed as much, maybe. Which, again, I think the penalties are just so inconsistent, and that's something that needs to be addressed.
It's really difficult. I actually don't know what to do about like the inconsistency. And this has been like a complaint from the drivers for years now, where they basically say, just tell us what's acceptable and what isn't.
Yeah.
And don't penalize one thing on this race and then another thing in another race. But then at the same time, each and every incident is unique in a sense.
Yeah.
Like people always try and go back and see, oh, but no, look, was so similar what happened 4 years ago in this race. And then you look and it's not really the same. There's always some sort of mitigating circumstance. So I guess I sat on the other side of the fence compared to the stewards, but what can you do? All we can do is move on. And let's maybe move on and talk about the ugly ducklings of F1, AlphaTauri, Haas, and Alfa Romeo, and Williams. I mean, our back markers, our favorite teams with all of the best jokes.
Well, the first three, excluding Williams, I don't really know what happened with any of them. Did they do anything? They were just kind of.
I mean, Grosjean. My favorite. Can I just say, my favorite part of the whole weekend actually was Grosjean on his out lap yesterday. Like literally, just make it round the track to start your lap, and he went off into the gravel. Oh. Like that's talent. You have to give it to him. That's like some doing. And every time and also in the off season, especially like when people give him rubbish about like everything that he gets up to and the mistakes he makes. And then you can see like he reads all of it and you feel so bad about it. You're like, shame, like guys, you can't be so mean to Roman. Like he's still a person. And then he does things like what he's doing. And then you just think, how is Hulkenberg sitting on the couch doing commentary? That's all I want to know.
I know he is a lovely person and he does definitely get a lot. Is it a lot more stick than he deserves? I think he definitely is always the first one you joke about. And it's perhaps because he's been in the sport so long as well that we forget about the others, like Julian Palmer was perhaps one. But because he's gone, we just focus on Grosjean, and he is quite bad, to be fair.
No, look, and you know, I would say 3 or 4 years ago, he had performances here and there where you thought, oh wow, Grosjean, like where did that come from? Like he put in good quali laps now and then, and he put good rate. When last did he put in like a really surprising qualifying performance or really good race performance? Like if it's been anyone in a Haas, it was Magnussen. Like Magnussen now and then has been putting in a good performance, but Grosjean, he's just pootling about at the moment. I don't know what he's doing. And but true, I also agree with you that I actually don't know where he finished, him or Magnussen or Kimi or Giovinazzi.
Kimi 11th, 12th, 13th for the Haas's. Gio was 14th. And then who? I don't even know who the others are. AlphaTauri, what colour are they? They were 10 and 15. So yeah. Gasly
did okay. He got it was Kvyat. Kvyat came 10th actually. Yeah, Gasly was running so well. Like he qualified well. He was up there fighting with Sainz and them in like the lower points positions, and then he had to make another pit stop. I think he had damage, which is a shame for him. I think because he did quite well, I would say. And the Alphas, I mean, Kimi.
Had all four wheels.
All 4 wheels on the car still. That's exciting for them. A big improvement from last week. We had Giovinazzi getting a black and white flag for track limits. And that's basically it. So fun weekend for Alpha. and then let's make Williams.
Yep. So I was so upset for George, or like so excited for getting through to Q2. He was so close off Q3 as well, which I think would have been so encouraging for him. But then he did have that trip to the gravel, which I'm going to be positive about it and say that it's good. He was showing that he was fighting for position. He wasn't just giving position up. He wasn't just, I'm normally at the back, so I'm just going to let everyone through easy. Like he'd gone out onto the marbles. He was trying to hold it.
Yeah, he was a try. He was a trier during this race.
And I think being a trier and it going wrong, as long as it's not every single race, is definitely better than just giving up.
No,
letting
agreed.
someone past.
And well, he still beat Latifi despite everything. So I think that's good for him at least. And I see here Dornie F1 House is asking in the comments, where do you think George would have finished if he hadn't made that mistake? What do you think?
Oh, I don't know. I think everyone was being very excited and thinking George would get points, but I don't think he would have. I think they were still quite a bit off, and the fact that he wasn't able to close up on after he got to the end kind of showed that. I don't know. I think, would he have got past Gasly? I don't think it would have been maybe one position, two positions higher. Don't think it would have been anything too wonderful.
No, I agreed. Although what we can say about Williams is it's getting better. Like every race, I feel it's getting better. Like George in Q2, racing a bit with everybody, and hopefully, Hungary was a good track for them last year. So I really hope George can pull a cat out of the bag next week in Hungary. So I'm holding thumbs for that, and I really, really think George is such a talented driver, and I really want him to see. I really want him in that Mercedes, but then
he'll get there.
Like you have Bottas, and Bottas is also really doing a good job. So I don't really know what I want anymore, and it's very difficult for me.
Don't even try to talk to me about who I want where, because I want everyone. I'm too nice. I just want everyone to be the best person.
I want everyone to be happy. Yes, except I feel we can let Kimi and Grosjean go. If Kimi goes. What? Kimi to stay?
Yeah.
Have you seen his adverts? I don't even get that advert. I didn't even get that advert in South Africa, and you guys still shared it with me, and I had to live through that thing. How do you guys? So I feel for that advert, Kimi is fine. It's fine with me if Kimi doesn't drive next year. We'll have Alonso.
Take that deal.
We'll have Alonso next year. How many geriatrics do you want? You have all these old men driving around the track. No. Anyways, that was our take on many different things up until Kimi's very exciting advert. So, Dornie, the next part of our podcast is very exciting, and that's where we hand out our awards for the race weekend. And our first award is called the Pastor Maldonado Award for Most Dunderheaded Deed. Now, I would like to propose Charles Leclerc for this award for his attempted overtake on Sebastian Vettel. Because if you open the dictionary and you look at the word dunderhead, you will see that, that snapshot of Charles's Ferrari mounting Vettel's Ferrari from the back. That to me is classified as a dunderheaded move.
I was going to go with just Renault with that protest. What is the point? No.
Okay, fair enough. I think actually, I don't really know what to say about Renault, because I was upset about the whole Ricciardo Stroll incident. And when I saw Renault was protesting, I was like, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Somebody needs to stand up for Daniel's rights. And then I heard they're protesting about the Racing Point car, and I was like, what a waste of time and energy. So I'm inclined to agree with you there. Let's give it to Renault.
Amazing. Right. They'll be so happy.
Yeah, it's the first award they've won in about, 15 years. So let's move on to the Lewis Hamilton #Blessed Award for luckiest driver. I want to say Lance Stroll for not getting a penalty, but I'm sure you'll disagree with me on that.
Ooh, luckiest driver. Lando Norris, I think, has been pretty lucky. Considering he was complaining about having not broken ribs, but something going on with his rib issue, and then last lap Lando is
it sort of came together for him at the end, right? But
I don't know if that's lucky or if that's him hard work paying off.
I think the Stroll Ricciardo overtake really worked in his favor, because also how it played out, they basically went off the track and then Lando just drove past them, and then Perez had the broken front wing as well, which then led to problems. So I'd agree with that actually. Look, Lando, I think he made his own luck as well. Yeah. He was really, really fast at the end of both races last week and this week. So he's third in the championship. How crazy is that?
How?
Right? So that's pretty insane. And but yeah, maybe some elements of luck for him, I think, this race. Especially also, and I think we can then move on to the next award, which is the Nico Hulkenberg Podium Award for unluckiest driver. And I wanted to give that to Carlos Sainz because he did such a good job in qualification, qualifying third on the grid in the rain. He's such a good rain driver. He actually did a really good job in the first stint in the race, like holding everybody off. And you can see his car wasn't as fast as the Renaults or the Racing Points behind him. And then he had a bad pit stop. And basically that 3 seconds, because the cars were so close behind him, he basically lost 5 positions just through that pit stop, which I felt bad for him about.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, who's my unluckiest driver? Again, this goes back to creating your own luck, because I would have said maybe Seb or George, but both of them, did they create their own luck? I'll say Seb.
I think
kicked up the bum, did he?
It felt that Seb was trying to not get into trouble in that first lap. Yeah. And then, Leclerc just basically rammed him from the back. So I agree there. Seb, and also, this is probably going to be his last year, and you just want him to have a few good races still. And at the moment, it's really bad.
It's not good.
Yeah, so I guess congratulations to our winners, Renault, Lando, and Seb on your awards. I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, Dornie, I think this is probably their crowning achievements of their lives, I would say. Yeah,
I think definitely up there.
I mean, Lando has a podium in F1, but what does that really mean compared to the honor of a TF1 show award?
I know. It's all about honor.
All right. Well, I think that's basically our race recap for this week. Very excited to have you on, Dornie. Thank you so much for joining.
Lovely being on. Thank you.
If you'd like to share your social media details where people can go and find you for your insights.
My insights. My social media is just F1 Dornie. Just
all right. Well, I'll also link it down in the description of the video when this is done. So I'll make sure people can come and find you for your infinite wisdom.
Come have a
and
look.
Snap judgments. So it's going to be really cool. Yeah, just again, thank you so much for joining. Really looking forward to Hungary next week. Another race, going to be a new track, new challenges. So it's going to be brilliant to see. And thank you everybody for listening to this podcast. And if you enjoyed it, please leave a comment, or you can hit that subscribe button as well, whether you're listening on YouTube or Apple Podcast or Spotify or whatever you're listening. Please hit that subscribe button, because I'm going to be back every week with more episodes and more fun guests. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you, and see you next week.
See ya.